Hey everyone, welcome back with a new lecture with ISO IEC 17025 2017 edition, and now is confidentiality. And how can the lab keep confidential all informations related to the customer, all lab activities and results related to the customer? First requirement for confidentiality: the lab shall be responsible through legally enforceable commitment for all informations obtained or created during lab activities performance. And if the lab tend to release any of these informations to make them publicly available, they shall inform the customer in advance, except for informations that the customer already makes them publicly available. So the lab shall keep confidential all informations related to the customer, all lab activities and lab results related to the customer between the customer and the lab only. But if the lab for some reason they tend to release any of these informations, as example on their website, in this case they shall take acceptance from the customer, and that will be in a contract, except for some informations that the customer already makes them publicly available. The action can be taken in this case. The lab shall make a contract with the customer relating to his lab activities, including that the lab shall keep confidential all informations related to the customer for his lab activity and lab results between the customer and the lab. But in case if there is any change in the contract, if they tend to release any of these informations to make them publicly available, such as validation data related to his lab activity or accreditation certificate including his lab activity, to provide higher confidence to other customers or to give a strong point about the lab to other customers, in this case they shall inform the customer and get his acceptance, such as they can take a signature from him, and they can sign a new contract or attach a record including his acceptance to the old contract. And you should know that the actions taken to apply the requirements of ISO can be changed from lab to another lab. As example, if you are working under government authority or under any other organization such as company or any other organization, in this case you don't need to have a contract with them to analyze the samples, because you have to analyze the sample because they are your customer. But if you are working in a private lab, they are dealing with customers, so they shall have, it's better for them to have a contract with the customer, with each customer relating to his lab activities and lab results, to protect your rights and also protect the customer rights and provide the customer with a higher confidence about the lab. When the lab required by law to release some informations about the customer in this case shall be notified of the information provided unless the lab prohibited by law. And that also can be written and signed by the customer in the contract. And if there are informations obtained about the customer from sources other than the customer, these informations shall be also confidential between the lab and the customer, but the source shall be confidential to the lab unless agreed with him that they will provide his name. And this point is a new added to this edition. And the last requirement and the most important requirement: all personnel working inside the lab or from outside the lab, such as suppliers, customers, or accreditation bodies, they shall keep confidential all informations obtained during the lab activities performance. The most important point in every lecture: how to implement this clause. Implementation. First point, you shall make a contract. As I told you, if you are working under government authority, organization, or other company, in this case you don't need to make a contract with the government because they are your customer, but you will analyze any of their samples with any customer. But if you are working in a private lab, you shall make a contract with the customer, including all requirements of ISO IEC 17025 2017 edition related to confidentiality, to keep all informations confidential between the lab and the customer. And if there is any change in the contract, it shall be accepted by both of them, by the lab and the customer. And you can make a new contract or attach any new record signed by the lab and the customer to the old contract. The second point, all personnel working inside the lab or from outside the lab, they will deal with the lab, they shall sign a confidential declaration that included they will keep all information related to the lab activities or results confidential between them and the lab, or between the lab staff and the customer. And also it's better to make a procedure including all requirements of ISO related to confidentiality, and I'll try to combine impartiality and confidentiality in one procedure. The procedure for impartiality and confidentiality. The scope of this procedure will be applied to all lab activities and personnel working inside the lab or dealing or from outside the lab, such as suppliers, customers, or others. The purpose of this procedure, from the previous lecture you will get the purpose of impartiality, to safeguard impartiality, to ensure independence of the lab in decision making relating to lab activities and results, to remove conflict of interest and bias, and at the end to ensure the integrity of results. And also for confidentiality, to keep confidential all information obtained during lab activities to safeguard confidentiality. And the procedure will be divided into 2 points, impartiality and confidentiality. Under these 2 points I will add some requirements. You can use these requirements or you can increase according to your lab vision. Impartiality, first point, lab results shall be controlled, revised and approved before giving to the customer, and this is very important point. As I said in the previous lecture, you have to revise the results before giving to the customer to ensure that there is no risk due to impartiality relating to the lab activities or lab results. Lab management shall keep neutrality and difference between all customers, and lab shall verify the accuracy of all results to ensure that the obtained data is suitable for decision making in serving customers. And this is very important. You should have a proof for your results, and that will be by quality control samples every sequence. It will be like a proof in front of the customer. If he has any problem with the result and he will ask you, you will show him that you did quality control samples and you have accepted results. Lab personnel shall be free from any commercial or financial pressure, especially who is working in a position affecting the results of the lab, or in tenders, working in tenders, or dealing direct with the customer. And the most important point related to impartiality, which is the risk-based thinking or risk-based approach, as I explained in the previous lecture. You have to find out the risk that will affect impartiality inside the lab and try to eliminate or reduce this risk. And you should record each risk with the grade of this risk, if it's high or medium or low. So risks due to impartiality shall be recorded in a risk register form, and management shall take immediate actions to eliminate or reduce these risks. You shall record all risks after you will make risk analysis inside the lab related to impartiality, and you will record these risks and the grade of these risks and how to eliminate or reduce this risk inside the lab. And during the year, if you find any risk due to impartiality, you shall take immediate action. Management shall take immediate action to eliminate or reduce this risk. And after that, also in the management review every year, they shall discuss also if there is any new risk due to impartiality, and they shall record all of them. So the risk and measures taken to eliminate them shall be recorded in a risk register form. Also, another point, personnel shall not have a part ownership with the customer. Second clause in this procedure, which is confidentiality. All information obtained during lab activities shall be confidential between the lab and the customer, except for information that will provide higher confidence to the customer and that shall be agreed between the customer by the customer and the lab, and as I said, that will be written in a contract. Lab management shall take immediate action with the person who will send any information about lab activities or results to any other source or media, and you shall keep confidential all information relating to lab activities or results between the lab and the customer. You cannot send any of these data to the media or any other source. And also another very important point, if the assessor came to your lab and asked you about the result of any lab activity, result for any customer, you shall tell him that these results are confidential only to the lab and I cannot provide you with these results, and he will respect your answer. And also very important point, to keep your data confidential to the persons inside the lab. Computers, including lab activities, procedures, other documentation and results shall be password protected and shall be accessed only by authorized persons. So all information obtained shall be handled in a way to keep them confidential. And risks, and this is the most important point, in all requirements of ISO IEC 17025 2017 edition, risks due to confidentiality should be registered also in a risk register form, and how to eliminate this risk, and also the degree of this risk or the grade, and reviewed every year or based on the lab rules, and that what we discussed also in impartiality. That was my procedure for impartiality and confidentiality and how to implement both of them. You can use the same or try to apply these requirements in your lab according to your lab vision and your lab requirements, because that will be different from lab to another lab. Because before that I found many persons who asked me about complete system to be applied in his lab, and this is not good. You should make your system inside your lab according to the lab requirements and according to your capacity, and to also the risk analysis that you will do inside the lab. So don't take system from another lab to apply in your lab, but just make your system, and that also will be good for you to be trained for making documentation of ISO. Thank you, and see you in the next lecture.